Welcome to the Land Your Bet Sports Betting Show. It is late here on Wednesday on the West Coast. Getting ahead of this slate here on Thursday for you guys in the NBA, as we're doing each and every day now. Also coming at you with a video with those best bets and final plays. That's coming out day of each day as well. So we'll have that on Thursday at 3 p.m. as that's coming out every day at 3 p.m. for you guys on the East Coast, 12 p.m. for those of you on the West Coast. So go ahead and subscribe to that page if you would. Continue to follow along if you like what you're getting. And let's get right into what we've got for Thursday. This one I'm running through the leans that I have and some of the projections that I would put together for this slate here on Thursday, which, like I said, has 4 games. Cleveland is the only team that's playing the second leg of a back-to-back here. They'll be taking on the Grizz. We'll take a look at that game. They just beat the Pistons by 8 or so. Not very impressive by them, but they did have a $1.28 against them. Indy is going to be at New York on Thursday, and that'll be the front end of a back-to-back for them when they take on Sacramento at home on Friday. And then Memphis is going to be taking on Cleveland, like we just talked about. They will also be taking on the Dubs at home on Friday on the second leg of that back-to-back. So we'll keep an eye out on those teams on the front end of the back-to-back, but more importantly, let's kick things off with this historic matchup between the Lakers and the Celtics in Boston. Lake Show 11.5-point dogs, 239.5 on the total. The key thing about the injuries here is LeBron James and Anthony Davis are on every injury report pretty much the entire season. But they've mostly played as well. This time, I'm not sure that AD plays. 11.5 seems to indicate that the odds makers know at least something and that they don't expect AD to play, or this would not be 11.5 in my opinion. I mean, the Celtics are at home dominating teams by about 11 points, so could mean not as much, but to me, this 11.5 point spread indicates that AD is not playing because you get the sort of LeBron, the Lakers tax whenever you want to bet on them anyway. The books know that everybody wants to bet on the Lakers. They're the most popular team in the NBA and in the world in basketball. So as a result, you usually get a little bit of an inflated line for them where they're given a bit extra points because it's the Lakers tax. Even with that, we're not getting much here. 11.5 for them might be the Lakers tax with AD not playing, if that makes sense. So LeBron probably going to play. He's just going to play probably until he falls apart fully. And Gabe Vincent and Cam Reddish remain out. Luke Cornett's the only guy that's probably missing here for the Celtics, as they're going to be fully healthy. Papa Al Horford was already listed as playing and available to play for Thursday. Taking a look at the road and home stuff for the Lake Show, it's really just about the points per game allowed. That's the most stark and noticeable thing on this particular slide here is they score 115 on the road. They score 117 at home. Not that big a difference. They give up 123 on the road versus just 112 when they play in LA. For the Celtics, for them, it's definitely defense and offense. I mean, they're just they're just in one of the best teams ever in the history of basketball at home over the last couple of years. So no surprise there that they're outscoring teams by 13 points per game when they play in their own building. The pace is actually a bit slower for them because they're just so efficient. It doesn't really matter how fast they play when they're in their own building. Moving on to some of the key stuff that I'm looking for outside of that, right? The Lakers, man, 3rd game in 4 nights, 4th in 6 nights. When you get on that kind of stretch, you're in trouble. They're 4-9 against the spread with a rest disadvantage. They're only failing to cover the games by about 2 points or so in terms of the spread there. But man, it's not good when they play Boston. They did only lose by an average of 7 last year. But they give up 125 points over 2 games, right? 126 in one game, 125 in the other. And that's just further indication of how bad they are on defense on the road right now. The games don't even average that high. It's completely in the Celtics' favor. Honestly, every tempo favors them in this game. They can play in the half court with this Lakers team. They could play in transition if they had to as well. And they're happy to keep the pace slow because they know that the Lakers half court offense is abysmal. So that's why I do think this game goes a little bit slower. I prefer an under in this one, but the Lakers are liable to score $130. So I don't really even want to have to mess with that. They've won 8 of their last 10 at home. The only 2 losses were 2 of the hottest teams in the league the best team in the league in Denver, and then maybe the 2nd or 3rd best team in the league in the Clippers right now. In those 8 wins, they are scoring 126 a game and only allowing 113, which is right in line with them winning all of their games by 13 points on average when they're playing at home. I would expect more of the same here in this one without anybody really questionable for them. I think they just make light work of this Lakers team that it's thin, man. It's thin when LeBron and AD are getting triple doubles and they're still not winning. They're a thin team right now. All right, game number 2 here. We've got my New York Knickerbockers taking on the Pacers at home in the Garden. Plus 3.5 for Indy if you want that, and -3 if you want to take the Knicks. 242.5 is the total, and I gotta be honest, that feels pretty high. in a game that I understand it probably won't have OG Anunoby. That's another sort of indication to me that the books don't think OG Anunoby is going to play, because he is worth at least a couple points to this Knicks defense, which is still very good, best in the league since he's been there, but he's only missed the last 2 games, and in those last 2 games, haven't given up a ton of points, still been a very good defense, but haven't been challenged. So I don't really know what to do with that, except for I do lean strongly to the under, in part because of what I have here for the Pacers on this injury report, which is that Tyrese Haliburton is questionable. He's probably going to play, and when he does play, he's going to be on a minutes restriction still. That was part of the deal, right? He wants to be in line for awards, for whatever he wants to get, most improved, He's in line for stuff, right? Most clutch player of the year. If he wants to win any of that stuff, he has to play the 68 games that's required. And if he wants to do that, he can't wait the time that they might want to wait for him to come back. These reports have been coming out of the Pacers camp for the past couple of days, which is that Tyrese Haliburton was on a minutes restriction in this last game where they lost to Boston. And he's going to continue to do that because he wanted to come back early. He wanted to come back early so he could meet this minimum games played requirements to win awards and be made an all-star and all the rest of it. So Benedict Mathurin is also questionable. TJ McConnell is questionable. Jalen Smith is questionable. Bad injury report for this team. You definitely want a bunch of those guys to be available if you could, especially Tyrese. Julius Randle's out. So is Mitch Rob still. And then OG Anunoby's questionable. So is Quentin Grimes. I don't know that either of those guys play. Quentin Grimes just tweaked his ankle in this last game where they beat the Jazz. And OG, has looked pretty bad so far in terms of his ability to come back from this injury right now. That's been keeping him out. So we'll see if he's able to make it back after missing 2 games. But even if he doesn't, and Tyrese Haliburton is on this minutes restriction, that's a huge reason that I like this under in this one. Obviously, everything for the Pacers here, bit better at home. 7 point should be very clear. These stats for the Pacers and for the Knicks are more recent. This is not the full season. For the Pacers, this is the last 9 games since they got Pascal in that trade. For the Knicks, this is the last 15 games since they got OG Anunoby and shipped out IQ and RJ Barrett. In these games for the Pacers over their last 9, you can see 116 points per game versus 123 on the road. That's different. 116 on the road versus 123 at home. And they're allowing 121 on the road versus 119 at home, losing these games on the road much more so than they are at home. It's part of why I don't like them to score here. They're not doing it unless they're with Tyrese Haliburton, first of all, and at home. The pace stays about the same, but it's slowed down, as you can see, 100 and 100.8. Now, Haliburton has missed like 3 or 4 of these games in their last 9. So that is a big deal for why this pace has slowed down. But they've also lost Bruce Brown. And that's a huge part of it, because when Bruce Brown was on this team, his on-off numbers for pace were just as high as Haliburton's, like 103 pace with him on the floor, 104 sometimes, versus like 100, 101 with him off the floor. That's what we're seeing now. The second unit isn't run by Bruce Brown, and he's not out there with Tyrese Haliburton as the number 1 or 2 dude to be running down the floor in transition with Haliburton, right? He was in transition a ton with that team when he was on it. Now he's on the Raptors. So that's why they've been playing slower for sure. Pascal, capable of playing fast. He played fast on the Raptors when they needed him to, but also is a very good half-court player. So the Knicks here, this is the last 15 games for them. You can see the 109 points per game allowed at home is incredible. One of the best the best defense in the league, basically, since he got there. We'll see what that means against this team. I'm actually a bit more interested to look at the key stats for this game, because I think there's some interesting matchup stuff here. So in the last 7 games since the trade for Pascal, that should say 9 games rather, sorry. 7th in offensive rating, but 23rd in defensive rating. Same stuff as it was last time before they got the trade here for Pascal. They're still a bottom 10 paint defense, although I guess they're a little bit better than they were because they were just the worst. Or 3rd worst. Now they're the 2nd best 3-point defense. They are really good at guarding that 3-point line right now. And the Knicks score a ton and shoot a ton of threes, right? That is how they get the bulk of their points, to be honest. They are 6th in the league since the trade in terms of the percentage of their shots that they are shooting from deep. So the fact that the Pacers limit what they want to do, very helpful. They are number 1 at limiting assists. That doesn't matter when you're guarding the Knicks because they don't score off of assists. I believe they have the 3rd fewest. No, that's the 6th fewest points off of assists now. Yeah, which we're talking about. The 3-point offense for them has been pretty good as well for the Knicks, but still, they're shooting too many points from the 3 for me to really believe in them, especially without Julius Randle, who's the main dude who was driving at the rim for them, to be honest. So now it's a lot of like Josh Hart and Dante DiVincenzo trying to get to the rim. Not quite the same thing, even as bad as the Pacers are defending the paint. The Knicks will keep that pace slow, even without Jay Randle and Mitch Rob. Maybe you think it does. They still play really good offense. Like Dante DiVincenzo and Josh Hart have been going off, but in the last 2 specifically, right, as they've been the focal points a lot more with Jalen Brunson. But overall, like I don't think this without Haliburton forcing the issue, this thing is likely to go under in my strong opinion there. So game 3 that we're looking at is going to definitely be a lower total than that Knicks and Pacers game. The Cavs and the Grizz back in Memphis here. We don't know who's in or out for the Cavs. They just did have Garland and Mobley come back, so we should keep an eye on that because those two dudes just came back from injury and played in this last game where they beat the Pistons. Luke Kennard is doubtful, probably not going to play again. Derrick Rose is doubtful. He hasn't played in a while, but I put that on there because he's gone from out to at least doubtful now. John Conchar questionable, Zaire Williams questionable. So I don't really, it's going to be the same thing for the Grizz. Once again, I don't expect many points. Let's just get into some of the stuff. The road home stuff is a little bit interesting because the Cavs do score a lot more. They give up a fewer points everywhere, really, like at home and on the road. To be honest, their defense has been incredible this year. Slightly fewer when they're on the road, games averaging about 223. I think 218.5 is about fair. I wouldn't go over this game, to be honest with you. I would lean under, but the Cavs are scoring a bit more. They're down to play slow. And with Mobley and Allen back, that choppy offense is going to be back to its old way, its old ways, its old self. I was going to say, because with those two down low, I think I've seen enough, man. Like, I don't need anything else to know about this Cavs team to know that when they have Mobley and Allen on the floor, it ain't going to work. It's not going to work enough on offense, and even on defense. At times, it's just kind of like, well, there's only one dude on the floor that's a really good matchup for either of them. So why are they both on the floor at the same time? That's how I feel about it at this point. Looking at what they've done this year on no rest for the Cavs, 2-4 straight up. They're scoring 104 points per game in those 6 games, allowing $115. Those are bad numbers, right? I know I've been saying this now for a while. Everybody sucks on the back-to-back. And even with Garland and Mobley back, possible one of them sits after playing and coming back in a game and not wanting to rush them back into 2 games in a row in 2 nights. So we'll see. They're taking a ton of threes. That's the thing about this game that could make it go over. Both these teams just shoot a ton from 3. We might see that variance, but the Cavs, incredible 3-point defense. The Grizzlies are not. They just haven't been a good defense in general. I know they have the 8th ranked defensive rating over their last 9 games since they've been without all these other dudes, right? Since they've been out with Bane and John Moran, everybody's been out for them. They're still awful. They're just awful on offense. The only team that's really been as bad as them on offense is the Heat, who, congratulations, broke their 7-game losing streak tonight to finally come back to real life. But for the Grizz, they just don't get any easy buckets. They don't get points in the paint. They don't get free throw attempts. And they have to score a ton of threes. That's it. Like, they don't get rebounds or second chance points at this day and age without Steven Adams. It's just crazy to think about what they used to be like and how all you needed to know about the Grizzlies was, are they playing a team that can't rebound? Great. Then they're going to probably win because they'll get a ton of offensive rebounds and a ton of second chance points. And that's not the case anymore. They just have to work too hard and they don't have the shooters. So Vince Williams is going to be in. I'll be eyeing some of his props. You guys know I love to go back to him because he's one of the only legitimate NBA scorers that I see on this team right now. So it'll be a lot of Triple J. It'll be a lot of Vince Williams with maybe some Xavier Tillman mixed in. But it's going to be a lot of guys that you probably haven't even heard of unless you're a ridiculous psycho NBA fan. So not really loving what we're seeing from the Grizz there. We're going to probably take the Cavs, but more likely it's a stay away, and I'll find some props in that game. I'm going to be honest with you. Finishing it out here, a sad story in Philly because Joel Embiid is legit injured now. He's out in this one. So is D'Anthony Melton. So is Robert Covington. Marcus Morris Sr. is going to be doubtful. Tyrese Maxey is questionable. That's a huge factor in this game. So is Nicholas Batum. All of that said, -4 for the Jazz at home. I think they're going to win by double digits. I think they're going to smack this Philadelphia 76ers team. I don't know if Tyrese Maxey is going to play. If he does, I'm less confident in just saying, yeah, maybe I'll take an alt spread of -8 for this team or something. Not going to go that route at this point. I would just put a lot more on the -4. But if Maxey sits, this -4 is very incorrect. We just saw this team get pounded by the Portland Trailblazers, who just beat the Bucks. Very nice win. So surprising that Glenn Doc Rivers wasn't able to come in and turn things around right away for this Bucks team. Anyway, for the Jazz, they're going to be fully healthy. So what that means is they're amazing at home. Let me actually go right to their home road stuff real quick, because you can see, if you haven't been following along with talking about the Jazz, they've been incredible for their last 17 games. But also it's when they're at home. They've had a few decent road wins over the course of these 17 games or so, but it's all about this 124 that they're scoring at home versus the 113 that they score on the road, the 116 that they allow at home versus the 120. It's not even like they're just better on offense at home. They're also way better at defense. They're just insanely better. It's the Warriors from last year. It's the same concept, right? Of this team is just a completely different team when they're in different buildings. For the 76ers, the home road stuff doesn't matter. The only thing that freaking matters is Embiid playing. So that's why I go right here to this Embiid versus no Embiid numbers for the 76ers. With him, 121 a game, 44 rebounds that they're collecting, 28 free throw attempts that they're taking, unsurprisingly, with Embiid leading the league in that category, 23-point attempts that they're taking. That should say 33-point attempts that they're taking each game. Without Embiid, 112, 38 rebounds, 23 free throw attempts, 34 three-point attempts. So obviously they've got to shoot more from the outside because they don't have their best player down low and their best player. And they don't get to the free throw line because even though a couple of guys attack the rim, Maxey attacks the rim, Kelly Oubre attacks the rim. Come on. I mean, Joel Embiid lives at the free throw line for a reason. So obviously that's going to be the number that goes down. It's about the easy baskets. They just go way, way down. And now you're relying on 3-point shooting from a team that doesn't really want to have to rely on 3-point shooting to get its buckets. So the Jazz, I don't really care what they do on defense. They're fine at home, middle of the pack, but really it's just about like the fact that they're going to outscore Philly. Last time they played them, we just saw this matchup on Jan 6th earlier this year. And it was awful. It was a brutal output for the Philadelphia 76ers. They shot 18% from the field, from three, about 40% from the field as a team. So it was just abysmal, which is why Utah had so many rebound chances. They had out rebounded them 48-34 because they got all the chances because Philly missed all the shots. I mean, if Maxey doesn't play, I expect that again. If Maxey does play, I expect that again. Like he and Toby Harris are just going to be forcing shots up. They're not going to have their normal group of wing players between Batum and Covington and Marcus Morris Sr. Say what you want about those guys, but at least it was like corner three guys and catch and shoot guys that were available for them. Even Marcus Morris, Mook is able to get his own shot at his ripe old age of probably like 34 or 5, whatever. So all that said, like, they're not going to be able to stop this Jazz team from scoring. I wouldn't expect them to stop the Jazz team from scoring if Embiid was playing. If Embiid was playing, I would say just crush this over. It's going to be like a 250-point game because they're not going to be able to stop Embiid, and he's not there. And the 76ers aren't really going to stop the Jazz getting out in transition, getting buckets from various spots on the floor. Like this offense is very well-rounded, especially when it's at home, and really only when it's at home, as we've seen. So, like I said, I'm going to be leaning here on the Jazz. I'm just going to hit it before I know what's up with Maxey, and then we'll go from there. If Maxey's ruled in and this thing goes down, I might still hit it because I think this is a great spot for the Jazz back at home after some road stuff where I know they're happy to be there. So that's all the time I have for you guys. Continue to follow along. Appreciate everybody. Got a bunch of new subscribers. Going to be doing this, like I said, every night. Going to be looking at these games the night before, and then we're going to get into the slate on the day of at 3 p.m. Eastern. So come back for that video with the 5 plays that I'll have there. Hopefully no freaking late scratches like we had all over the place here on on Wednesday. And we have a great day on Thursday. Subscribe to that page. Jump in the comments if you would as well. Having a good time talking to you guys about stuff. And until I see you next, happy betting.